Tangent calling. Tangent calling. Tangent calling. Tangent calling.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Tangent Calling, the new series from Bristol-based publishers Tangent Books, where we go off on weekly tangents exploring a variety of themes that largely reflect the interests of the books we publish, covering everything from music to art to history to local ghosts and witches to foraging for mildly psychedelic tea. My name is Sol, and today I'll be joined again by Richard Jones, the founder of Tangent Books. Hi Richard, how are you doing?
Hi Sol, I'm very well.
How's your week been?
It's been good, busy. It's been a Bristol Festival of Literature. We've been doing that on Zoom as well as everything else, and that's been great. It's really good, and in some ways Zoom has actually been, I wouldn't say better, but it's been very different in a positive sense in that we've had people from all around the world join some of the events, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I co-hosted the Wharf Colston Fact and Fiction webinar on Monday. Thanks for everyone who showed up to that. That was a really fun night. It's been really fun actually, every single one that I've gone to.
It's been good. It's been really good, and there's been so many people involved, and the audience numbers have been good. It's been a really, really successful festival. So I'm so pleased that we went ahead with it because, like everyone else, we seriously considered dropping it. Some months ago. I guess we were fortunate in that other people had tested the water for us by doing online events. But a few of the people at the festival have said that they feel that the Bristol Festival of Literature was actually the most coherent one, in that it felt like a festival because we had events every day over a period of 10 days, and we had a really varied programme, workshops, readings. The one which you mentioned was a far more sort of a political debate about based on a book, Mark Steed's and Roger Ball's brilliant book, Wilkinson to Colston, which tells a story of the Bristol's legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, but from a radical angle, a very different angle, and also celebrates the tradition of abolition in Bristol, which is largely overlooked. So that was great. We had a fantastic audience for that. We had about 100 people for that, which was fantastic. Really good debate afterwards as well.
It was, yeah, really good fun. But today we're going to be talking about ghosts and werewolves. No, there's no werewolves, sadly, but there is headless horsemen. You a big Halloween person, Richard? You into this? We're a couple of spooky bitches today. But are you normally a spooky bitch?
No, I wouldn't say that, Sol. If I'm honest, I think that Halloween has become very commercialised in recent years. When I was a kid, it was something, we maybe did a bit of apple bobbing, maybe a bit of trick and treating, but I just look now, you go to the supermarkets now, Halloween's such a huge event. It's almost taken over from bonfire night, hasn't it, in many ways, as a sort of autumnal event. Yeah, I mean, it's great that kids have fun and everything, but I see the creeping influence of America, and I think that has to be stopped at all costs.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'm just happy to have a kind of spooky time every year. I really like Halloween. I'm kind of like embarrassingly interested in, paranormal stuff. So
I'm all in favour of that, Sol. I think what we're doing is we're reclaiming Halloween, because we're not celebrating the commercial aspects of Halloween, but we're looking at our top 10 most haunted places in Bristol. So there's no trick or treating here. This is real.
Yeah, this is real. This is some gritty. This is Halloween from the streets. Because with COVID on, you're not going to be able to go to a party and have an actual fun Halloween this year. So instead, you can go and hang out in these kind of weird spots around Bristol and hope to see a ghost or something, and that might be quite fun. You know, we were listening to some Halloween music to get us pumped up for this session beforehand, and I actually kind of scared myself a little bit. I got a little bit freaked out when I was revisiting some of the memories on one particular place that I'm going to talk about. I did find it a little bit creepy. But, so we've got top 5 each. We've each picked 5 that we think is probably the creepiest places in Bristol. And we're going to go head to head. And then we're going to come out at the end, and we're probably going to let the listeners vote on which they think is who comes out top with the creepiest locations. And also, I believe you're going to throw in a fake story.
Could be me, Sol. Could be you.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, I think that's important to say, Sol. But it's one of these stories actually isn't true. All of the others are. All of these other ghosts are real, but one of them isn't. We've made it up. It's for you to decide which one. Hey, shall we get started, Sol? Let's go straight in with our head-to-head.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going straight in with a real old banger of a ghost story. It's the Odeon, and the Odeon in Bristol, in Union Street, Bristol. Lovely Art Deco building. And I used to be the film critic for the Evening Post many, many years ago, or one of the film critics. Was John Barber was the main guy, but sometimes John couldn't get along to the previews, and so I and others would go in his place because they were about 11:30 in the evening after the evening performance, and we were entertained in the Odeon bar by the manager called Colin, a very sort of bluffy Yorkshireman, lovely bloke Colin, and one night he was visibly shaken as he came into the bar, and we asked him what the matter was. He was very pale and trembling a bit, and he said that he'd just seen the ghost of Robert Parrington Jackson.
Really?
He had. And other people have seen this ghost many times at the Odeon over the years since 1946. But it was the first time that Colin had seen the ghost. And he was trembling like a leaf. He was absolutely scared because he'd gone into his office, which was also the office of Robert Parrington Jackson, who in 1946 was murdered in that very office. And Colin had walked in and he'd seen, sitting at his desk, a figure doing some paperwork. And he challenged the guy, and he walked in behind him and the chair swung round and he was there, and then he disappeared. And Colin was absolutely scared out of his wits, because what happened to Robert Parrington Jackson was he was shot in the head in that very office, in that very chair. It probably wasn't the same chair. I should imagine that they replaced that. But you never know. What
kind of chair was it?
It was a swivel chair, as you'd expect in an office or in a cinema manager. But what happened was, on May the 26th, 1946, so there were actually 1,800 people in the Odeon. Can you imagine that? There were 1,000 in the stalls and 800 in the posh seats upstairs. And somebody went into the office, one of the usherettes went into the office at 6:40, and there he was, slumped over the desk, Robert Parrington Jackson, dead, been shot in the head. And they timed the shooting to 6:20 in the evening, which was at the very time that a gunshot was heard on the film. The film was in fact called "Showing the Light That Failed," which is based on a Rudyard Kipling story. And there's a scene in when a shot is fired, and at that very moment, Robert Parrington Jackson was shot in the head. Nobody is really sure why. There was talk of there being a love affair. There was talk about him being involved with shady underworld figures. No substance to either of those. But in 1989, a petty criminal from Wales called Billy Fisher confessed to the murder on his deathbed, but the ghost still walks the Odeon, and it's said that Robert Parrington Jackson's ghost will never rest until the true murderer is revealed. That's number one, Sol. Beat that.
That was a banger. Wait, so you don't think it was the Welshman who confessed? That wasn't the true.
Well, no. Otherwise, a ghost would have been. You know,
The ghost.
found it would be at peace, and
Yeah.
But it's still there,
That
walking around the Odeon.
that couldn't have been a coincidence. They must have timed that to shoot him so that the film would have covered up the
exactly,
gunshot.
Yeah, which would make it seem that it
so
wasn't a random act. You're right, Sol. So yeah, so there was the equivalent of £25,000 in the till. So
right.
It was a night's taking. I'd say there were 1,800 people in the Odeon paying threepenny each in 1946. And you know, this was just after the war, of course. You know, it's just very evocative, isn't it?
Mm.
That part of Bristol was so badly bombed in the war. You know, the Odeon would have been standing on a bomb site, and you know there would have been people queuing up for some entertainment going in, and you know, and then this dreadful crime happened.
So do you think it was just a burglary then?
I don't know, Sol. I don't know. We'll never know. It's a mystery.
Mm. Do you believe in ghosts? Quickly before we continue, do you?
I've never seen one. I've never experienced one.
Yeah.
So in that, I don't disbelieve people who say that they have had paranormal experiences, but I have no personal evidence. So I guess that's a no. I might regret saying that. So.
Wow, you don't believe?
Well, I've not experienced them. I mean, can you believe in something you haven't experienced? I
suppose. So that's a good segue into my next place that I'm going to talk about, because I do actually have some personal experiences here. So my place is Arnis Vale, which is the park, cemetery, the hotel, which is actually just over the road from us here at Paintworks, and also quite close to where I grew up and where I still live. So I'll begin with the cemetery first. This is supposedly haunted by two ghosts. One is a woman who has been seen numerous times, dressed in black, crying next to a grave over her husband who had died in World War One. And the second is far creepier. It's actually a woman who's been seen crying and panicked after she was supposedly buried alive. Legend has it that it might be one of the nuns from Arnis Manor Hotel, which used to be a nunnery, who was buried alive in the park. That's one local myth as to who might be buried there. And as well as the cemetery, there is Arnis Manor Hotel, which is one of the most haunted locations in Bristol. So it used to be a nunnery, as I said, and the legend goes, although I think it's fairly kind of conclusive, that one of the nuns fell pregnant, and then to kind of cover up the scandal, so one of the nuns fell pregnant and then took her own life, and to cover up the scandal, the other nuns bricked her up in a wall, and her body was only found during the Second World War, when the hotel was damaged by a bomb, and then when repairmen were moving around, they found her bones in the rubble. And since then, her ghost has reportedly stalked the corridors of Arnis Manor Hotel, especially room.
That was Sister Teresa Sol, the name was, and she. It's said that because her bones, when they discovered the skeleton bricked up in the wall, instead of laying her to rest in a responsible and respectful way, her bones were just thrown into a skip or the rest of the rubble from the hotel, and that she walks the grounds of Arnis Manor Hotel ever since. But room 160 is said to be the most haunted room in Bristol, and there've been numerous cases of activity there, television switching itself on and off, taps turning themselves on and off in the middle of the night, people experiencing feeling the clothes thrown off their bed in the night, and all sorts of things. So if you want to stay in Arnis Manor Hotel, then you'd be a brave person to stay in room 160.
Yeah, you would. And, I wonder if she extends over, or if it's just some other ghost, to... I used to work at Wilder Music Studios, which is right next to Arnos Manor Hotel and right next to the cemetery, and it doesn't actually exist anymore. But there was so much supernatural shit going on in that studio. Like, I remember I'm trying to think of the kind of top ones. The fire alarms would just go off all the time for no reason at all. I remember there was a horrible vibe in there. It wasn't like it wasn't even just like poltergeist or like a nice ghost. It was like a kind of almost demonic, angry energy in there. And I remember some weird guy came in one time and he was like, there's shadows behind you on the wall and stuff, which was really creepy. And I just got this horrible atmosphere from the place. I remember asking my manager there, I was like, is this place haunted? And he kind of gave me this like stony look, and he was like, why do you ask? And I was like, some weird stuff's been going on. And he was like, yeah. He just kind of like sighed. He was like, yeah, stuff happens here. I can't explain it. He said one time he was locking up, and he was packing up one of the rehearsal rooms, and he started hearing the snare. He was the only person in the building, and he started hearing the snare drum just going bang, 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 bang in the other rehearsal room. And he said he went out and looked in the room, nothing was there. He went back to the room, it started again, bang, bang, bang. He went out to look again, and the door had been slammed shut.
Oh, this sounds like a John Carpenter movie.
Yeah.
Don't.
And I was like, what? Why are you only just telling me this? And he said he just ran out and went home and didn't bother packing up. And then not too long after that, I was working really late with the producer there.
You worked late?
Yeah.
After hearing that, you worked late there?
Yeah, well, I had to. Yeah, I did it after college. And it was probably about 11, and no one else was there. And we had... What he would do is he would set up an amp in a rehearsal room, mic it up, and then that would feed back into the control room where he would play his guitar, and he'd record it like that. And so he'd done his recording, but he didn't realise he'd left the mics on. And so we'd been sat there for like an hour just chatting, and then all of a sudden, this noise comes through the speakers from that mic, which I've never heard before, and it was just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was a bit like Parseltongue from Harry Potter, when Harry Potter speaks to snakes. It sounded a bit like that, mixed with some kind of horrible, like, feedbacky sound. It was so weird, and we both just looked at each other like, what the fuck was that? And it lasted probably about 15 seconds, and that was really unsettling. We were both really freaked out by that, because there was nothing that should have been making a noise in that room. No one was there. And then another time, so after all this was happening, I was starting to get really freaked out by this place. And so I hated being there on my own at night. One time when I left, I swear I saw a woman's face in the window looking at me. And so... But, I was getting a bit paranoid at this point, so I could have imagined that. But I would, I was 16, okay, give me a break. But I would get my mum to pick me up if I was doing a late shift to help me clean up, because I was so scared of this place. And one time, this was towards the end, and this was towards the end of it. And she came in to help me kind of tidy it up a bit because one of the bands had kind of caused a mess in the room. They'd left loads of beer bottles and stuff. So we kind of taken all the bins and we put it in the bin, which was by the front door. And we locked up and we started to walk away. And then we heard this crash behind us. And so we went back over and opened the door and looked in. And the bin had been tipped over and all the bottles were just all over the floor.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that is Arnis Vale. Yeah, that's a personal experience. So I mean, your Odeon was good, but
Well, Sol, that's I think there are some easy explanations to all that alleged ghostly activity, but you've got a recording studio and a bit of a cemetery. I've got a whole street, Sol, King Street in Bristol. It's there are more ghosts there than there are people. It's a fact. I should say actually, Sol, that a lot of these stories you can find in the Naked Guide to Bristol, which is available from the Tangent Books website, but also Weird Bristol is a great source for unusual stories about Bristol, and there are many of the ghost stories which we're telling you today are mentioned in that as well. If you're really interested and want to go back, there are a couple of out-of-print books. Redcliffe printed one, I think it was just called Ghostly Bristol, which you might find on eBay. And there are 2 books about Brislington ghosts. One is called Brislington Ghosts, and there's a whole book about the ghosts of Arnis Manor and Arnis Court and Arnis Vale Cemetery. So there's plenty to read.
yeah,
about books.
I'm desperate to read that Brislington one because apparently there's UFO sightings as well.
I know, it's a great book, and I read the Arnis Manor Hotel one some years ago, and it's really, really detailed and very scary as well. But anyway, back to a whole haunted street, King Street, one of the oldest streets in Bristol. So the 2 main sites here are the Old Vic and the Landoga Trail. There's the theatre and the pub just over the road. Let's start with the Old Vic, Sol. So there are loads of ghosts at the Old Vic. Sarah Siddons, a great Georgian actor, is said to regularly be seen in the Old Vic, treading the boards where she performed so much. And Henry Irving, the great Victorian actor, is said to have been seen on many occasions. And what make it even scarier, Sol, apparently Bram Stoker based the character of Dracula on Henry Irving. So I've got a vampire soul, a vampire connection. You didn't have that, did you, in your recording studio? And in renovation work in the 80s and the 90s, indeed, skeletons were found in the again bricked up in the wall of the Old Vic, and but there was no trace, Sol, of any deaths being recorded. So we don't know who those skeletons belong to, but they were found. But perhaps the strangest one, and the most famous one in the Old Vic, is Sarah Mccready. She was the theatre manager. She started there in 1829, and she was a very strong character, quite unusual for a woman at that time to be running a theatre, and especially one as prestigious as the Old Vic, the oldest working theatre in the country, let's just not forget. And she wasn't always well liked. She fell out with people. She was very forceful. Other people respected her for the way in which she ran a tight ship. But her spirit is still there, looking over the box office and checking people as they come in. And she's been seen on numerous occasions. And you know what, Sol? When she appears, there's always a smell of lavender in the air before her spirit appears.
You're fixing me with quite an intense stare there.
Yeah, it comes across well on a podcast, an intense stare. But anyway, the Landoga Trail just over the road. It's got as many as 12 ghosts, and it's the most famous ones are said to be a monk. There's a woman in white. They're always in white, aren't they? Women in white
Or black.
Black,
they're never
grey.
in,
Never in
pink or green.
No. So there's a gap in the market there.
Yeah.
But the spookiest one is the ghost of a small boy soul, a child, in leg irons. He's got a leg iron, this poor little boy. And What's really unusual, Sol, is this ghost doesn't haunt the Landoga Trail at night. He's seen in daytime. People look down, and there he is. So just imagine, Sol, even in the 50s, when the Landoga Trail was one of the first Burney inns. The Burney brothers revolutionised dining, Sol, by making it an event, and they introduced the classic menu of prawn cocktail, steak, and a black forest gatto. And so you look down for your prawn cocktail, and there's a little boy in leg irons sitting underneath your table, and then he just disappears, Sol. And do you know what?
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
A medium some years ago went in and talked to the boy.
Right.
He's called Pierre, Sol. We can name this ghost
Pierre.
Pierre.
What is he? Is he French?
I would imagine so, Sol. Possibly Belgian.
Right.
But it's an unusual name for a Bristolian.
Yeah,
Pierre,
it doesn't. Yeah.
unless it was Cleveland. Pierre.
Doesn't really add to the credibility of the story.
There's even more, Sol, because the King William just up the road is said to be haunted by John Gray, who died at sea in 1872. He was actually a captain of the SS.
This feels like you're getting desperate now to prove King Street to me.
No, there's more. There's so much more. John Gray died at sea in 1872 aboard the SS Great Britain, and but he was a regular in the King William, and it's said that his ghost haunts the back stairs of the King William. Those who know the pub will know exactly what I mean. There's a staircase at the back of the pub, a big broad staircase, and he can be said to be climbing the stairs late at night.
Right.
He's also supposed to haunt the Great Britain as well.
But, so how can he haunt two places at once? What does he?
I don't know. It's
does
ghostly,
he
isn't
get
it?
the bus over?
I should imagine so. Yeah. And talking of pubs, Soul of Rummer is another hot spot. The Rummer in St Nick's Market, and it's said that it's one of the oldest pubs in Bristol, and it's actually there's been an inn on that site since medieval times, and so it's got plenty of people. Loads of people have stayed there, going right back to medieval times. It's said that Elizabeth I stayed there, and indeed Oliver Cromwell stayed there. And but in 2007, Sol, there was a tour. Tour guide was taking some people around Bristol, and they stopped in the Rummer for something to eat. It's a very good restaurant, the Rummer, and they were. It was in the winter, and there was the open fireplace, which those of you familiar with the Rummer will know. And while they're enjoying their meal, Sol, they witnessed the torso of the man standing in front of the fire.
Torso.
The torso.
It's not even a full ghost.
No,
it's
not
half a ghost.
That's you get extra points for torsos in this game, Sol. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I suppose that you've got.
So that's half an entry.
Half an entry. Yeah. We'll beat that, Sol. That's my number two. Number 2, King Street.
Yeah, I'll give you credit for the vampire, but I think the rest of it it was a bit all over the place, to be honest. My next entry is interactive. So
Ooh.
yeah. So it's kind of a conflation of two locations. So I might lose points in that respect, but I'm going to start on Christmas steps and then take you somewhere else. It's my next entry is a journey. So Christmas steps is really quite nice now. I walked down it last Christmas and it was really, just great. But it used to be where they would drag up prisoners who were mainly imprisoned for religious prosecution things, and they were dragged up. I mean, back then it wasn't all these nice little shops and stuff. It was just a muddy hill, and they were dragged up screaming in chains up to the gallows where they would have been hanged, or where they would have burned witches, which is horrific. And people can still hear the screams of the men in chains being dragged up the hill.
Those could be the screams of people shocked at the price of a latte in the overpriced coffee shops of Clifton, running down the steps away from... You never know, Sol. There's always an explanation.
But also, when it started to become a bit more built up later on, I think it was called Knifesmith Street. It became a hotspot for violent muggings, and one of these most prolific muggers was a little guy called Jenkins Prothero, and he was under 4 foot tall, and what he would do is he would kind of he would act like he was a child who'd been injured or something, and then women would come over to help him, and then he would turn round and kill you.
How would he kill you if you were so short?
He'd jump at your neck.
Would he?
Yeah. Or no. I think he slashed their heels.
Slashed them to death on their heels.
No, I don't know.
Come on, Sol.
He cut off their toes.
He cuts off their toes. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
So where's this going?
He's where manicure. He was just trying to get a career at doing.
I thought you were talking about
manicures.
Christmas steps, Sol. Where's this going?
This was on Christmas steps. He used to cut people's heels up on Christmas steps.
Well, presumably you'd have to be standing below them, which would make them even... I'll see if he's only 3 feet tall.
Yeah, so they bend over to help because they thought he was an injured child. Then he would turn round and stab him in the neck, or
Those are toes just now.
No, neck, toes, and heels.
Yeah. Well, anyway, where's the ghost? Where's the ghost in this?
Yeah, we're getting to the ghost.
Dwarf. There's no ghost.
We're getting. I don't know how PC that is.
Well, you started it, Sol.
Right. So Jenkins Prothero, he's cutting up people's toes. He's just being really annoying, and so just quickly, I want to add, this isn't said anywhere, but I reckon. Have you seen the film Don't Look Now?
Don't think I have, Sol, but tell me the plot.
I haven't seen it either. I just know the ending.
Oh.
It's a thriller, but I'm pretty sure the ending is really... It's one of the creepiest kind of endings. And I'm pretty sure that it is inspired by Jenkins Prothero. If you watch it, you'll get why.
There's still no ghost, Sol.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. It's a fucking horror movie. So what happened to Jenkins Prothero is eventually, obviously, he couldn't go on doing this forever, so he gets arrested, he gets hung on Pembroke Road, and then, he gets hung on St. Michael's Hill.
No, it's Pembroke Road, I think.
I
think it was, yeah. Unless they hung him twice, of course, to teach him a lesson.
I don't know. It doesn't say where he was hung. He was hung, and then his remains were left to rot in chains on Pembroke Road. And this was left there for months until the locals said, look, you've got to take him away. The reason why, because he would come to life every night and start maniacally dancing underneath the moon. And people say to this day, if there's a full moon, you can still see Jenkins jigging about on Pembroke Road. And guess what, listeners? It's going to be a full moon on Halloween. So if you literally have nothing better to do, go to Pembroke Road, see if you can see Jenkins Prothero, and then let Tangent Calling know, and because I'm just interested. So what do you make of that?
I don't know what I can say, really. It sounded desperate to me. Anyway, let's get back to some proper ghosts, not some dancing dwarf from Pembroke Road or St. Michael's Hill or Christmas Steps or somewhere. Redcliffe Cave, Sol. And the Hole in the Wall pub. So, Redcliffe Caves, the great complex of caves which run underneath Redcliffe and which were which all sorts of stories about Redcliffe Caves are actually where the crucial to the glassmaking industry of Bristol. It's where where one of the components for making glass were mined and or hacked out rather than mined, and so it goes back a long way, Redcliffe Caves, and it is said that there are many ghosts there, but the most famous of which is Blackbeard the pirate, Edward Teach, the most notorious psychopathic pirate ever. He Blackbeard was a Redcliffe boy, we know that, and he came to a terrible end when he was eventually caught and killed when he was tricked into boarding a ship, and the Navy were hiding downstairs, or officers were hiding downstairs of the ship in the hold, and when Blackbeard's crew came aboard, they came and there was a mighty battle, and Blackbeard was decapitated, and it was said that his headless corpse swam around the boat.
Really?
Yeah, 7 times.
Oh my God!
Before eventually drowning. His head was taken to Princeton in America, where it was shaped into a drinking vessel. The brain was scooped out.
I mean,
and his head was made into a drinking vessel. It was lined with lead, not lead, silver, and it was brought out at banquets, and officers from the British Army would drink from the head of Blackbeard. And
what do you reckon what would you drink from the head of Blackbeard? It'd have to be
rum, presumably.
You'd have to make it worth it.
You would,
just
yeah.
use
I
it for,
imagine it'd be rum. It wouldn't be lager, would it?
For squash.
Yeah. So anyway, and it's said that the spirit of Blackbeard returned to his home in Redcliffe, and he still walks the caves to this very day. And just one other thing about Blackbeard. Go on, you could say something, Sol.
Yeah, I'm just going to take issue with this a little bit. I think your Blackbeard story is great. I think that is spooky. That's probably the spookiest thing you've said this whole time. Finally, like half an hour into the podcast. But why would he go back to Redcliffe Caves? Surely he'd have so many people that he'd want to go and haunt.
Who knows, Sol? What's he looking for? What's he searching
you tell me.
for? I don't know.
It's your story.
I don't know. What's he searching for? Why is his soul wandering the caves of Redcliffe? Possibly even the streets of Redcliffe, Sol. You thought about that? Maybe he's looking for his home. Maybe he wants to return to his home.
What I'm saying is I'm not convinced this is the ghost of Blackbeard. Maybe it's just someone else with a black beard.
No, it's Blackbeard, Sol. It's Blackbeard. Because Blackbeard is because the reason we know it's Blackbeard is because Blackbeard would... this ghost has got burning tapers in his beard, which is what Blackbeard did before he went into battle. He'd put tapers in his beard and light them, so it would give the impression of his head being on fire. And also, before it's true, Sol. If you're unfortunate to be captured by Blackbeard, and you were interrogated, if you were a prisoner and you were interrogated by Blackbeard, you knew it wasn't going to be a happy ending. But what he would do before he started the interrogation, he chewed broken glass, Sol, so that when he opened his mouth to start his interrogation, blood dripped down his face into his beard, and his beard would be sodden with blood.
And this is what the ghost does.
Absolutely, Sol, 100%. One other thing, Sol, because this is I'm going to segue now into another famous pirate, Long John Silver. But there is a connection between Blackbeard, who's a real pirate, and Long John Silver, of course, is a fictional pirate from Treasure Island. But in Treasure Island, there's a verse which goes, 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done for the rest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. And this refrain is sung by the pirates at various times in Treasure Island. And it was always a bit of a mystery where this verse came from and what it referred to. But the eminent historian, Mark Steeds, Bristol historian, has researched this thoroughly. And do you know what he's discovered, Sol? He's discovered a direct link between Treasure Island, which of course is the early part is set in Bristol, and Blackbeard, because when Blackbeard, in the 1700s, Blackbeard would punish a mutinous crew on this occasion, he punished a mutinous crew by marooning them on Dead Man's Chest, which is an island only 250 yards square, surrounded by high cliffs, and without water and no landing places for anything more than a rowing boat. And each man was given a cut. I think there were 70 of them. Was given a cutlass and a bottle of rum. And Blackbeard returned after 30 days to see what had happened. He assumed they'd all be dead, that they'd have drunk the rum and then killed each other. But he found that 15 of them had survived. The others were dead. And that's where 15 men on the dead man's chest comes from.
Wait, where's Dead Man's Chest?
It's an island, Sol, in where Blackbeard marooned his crew.
Yeah, but where?
In the South Seas. Seas.
No, it's not Bristol, is it? We're talking about...
No, Blackbeard's from Bristol.
Fair
point.
Yeah,
anyway, Long John Silver. Long John Silver is a fictional character. But when Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Treasure Island, so Long John Silver, Sol, was the landlord of the Spyglass in Treasure Island, the landlord and the cook in Treasure Island. There's a great scene in Treasure Island when Jim Hawkins first sees Long John Silver. He walks from Welsh Back, where the ship is moored, ready to go and explore for treasure, and he's been told to go and find Long John Silver in the Spyglass pub, and who's raising a crew to sail the ship, and he goes. It's a great scene in Treasure Island where Jim Hawkins first sees Long John Silver and describes him hopping across on his crutches like a bird. He says, and it's said that the Spyglass is based on the Hole in the Wall pub down in the Grove, just off Welsh Back, and it undoubtedly is, because the description of the pub in the Spyglass is so similar to the Hole in the Wall. It's called the Spyglass because it's got this unique feature. If you go down to the Hole in the Wall, on one side there is a little sort of adjunct with a spyglass in either side of it, which would have been the entrance or an entrance to the pub at one point. And what it was is that people could look out of these spyglasses and they could see if the press gangs were approaching, and if they were, they could run out of the other side of the pub, because again in Treasure Island it's very specific that the spyglass has two doors, one on either end, and the reason for that would be as a safety mechanism, so that when the press gangs were roaming the streets of the dock side of the harbour side, that the sailors could escape through the other door. But it's said that the ghost...
Where are the ghosts, Richard?
The ghost of Long John Silver.
What are you talking about?
The ghost of Long John Silver still
he's
haunts...
a fictional character.
Yes, I know, but that's not the point, Sol.
Is he based on a real life person? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, Sol. And he's based on the landlord of the Hole in the Wall. It's now the Hole of the Wall, which was a spyglass. And Long John Silver returns to the kitchens, and there's the clanking of pots.
Does the
and sometimes, Sol, as he does the washing up, but sometimes
puts the dishwasher on.
sometimes the smell of cooking awakes people in the middle of the night, and the clanking of pots.
Does he pour pints?
He does pour. He pours pints. So anyway, Sol, pirate ghost, Blackbeard and Long John Silver, beat that.
Yeah, it was so clearly bullshit though. Like, all right, my next one is so much better than that. Although I do really like pirates, but I think I like Headless Horsemen a little bit more, Richard.
Why are they headless, Sol?
Well, I'm going to tell you now. So, Ashton Court, beloved to many as just a place to go for a stroll, walk your dog, or cycling on a Sunday morning.
Or look for magic mushrooms, allegedly, Sol.
Yeah, yeah. Or get your magic mushrooms. And, but, as soon as night falls, it becomes a rather different place. Suddenly, you're gonna see headless horsemen.
How many?
I think just one headless horseman.
Oh, right. So it's not it's a headless horseman.
Yeah.
It's just not headless horsemen.
You're gonna you're gonna see a headless horseman. You're gonna see grey. You're gonna see grey ladies, and you're gonna see.
Sorry, carry on.
And you're gonna see a phantom hound, and there's just that's what you're gonna see if you go to Ashton Court at night.
So why's this horseman got no head, Sol? You seem to be avoiding this question.
I mean, look, there's nothing online. I want to know more than anyone why this horseman has no head. There's nothing online that says why. I would take a guess that.
Let's not speculate now, Sol.
What I would take a guess that he probably lost it in a croquet accident. I think.
Well.
I don't think he's like a knight. I think he's like a, polo accident. Yeah, I'm gonna go with, and he still kind of haunts it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so you can.
Let's get back to some real ghosts.
There's grey ladies. There's grey ladies. Yeah, and phantom hounds. I can't really give you much more than that, to be honest. But
So-
look, if
So this is based on spurious. This is based on search engines. Let me tell you about a story about a ghost which I've heard firsthand about this. This is so scary, Sol. You won't find this online because I was told this story by someone who used to work in the place in question. Gardener Haskins, sadly with us no more.
Gardener Haskins.
Gardener Haskins, the greatest shop in
Really?
Bristol, possibly
What?
the world.
My next one's B&Q.
Yeah, well, B&Q is a pale imitation of Gardener Haskins. I also love Gardener Haskins, so it's a tragic loss to Bristol. And a friend of mine worked there some years ago, and she told me that that beneath Gardener Haskins, which is actually an old soap factory, and there was a terrible fire there, I think in the early 20th century, and tragically only one person was killed in the fire, though, Sol. And the tragedy was that this was a night watchman who worked at the soap factory. But the tragedy is that he actually wasn't working that night, but he heard about the fire and returned to try and help put it out. And in his endeavours, his bravery of going in and helping to pull people out, he himself perished. And it's said that in the cellars of Gardener Haskins, there's a long corridor, Sol, and it's full of old junk and old stock and cobwebs, and more cobwebs, Sol, lots of cobwebs.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that long, dark, damp corridor, deep beneath Gardener Haskins, there's a door, Sol.
Right.
And my friend was looking for something in the cellar, and she went down this corridor, Sol, and she saw the door,
Yeah.
but she didn't open it, Sol. She felt something was wrong.
Okay.
So she went back, because she'd taken a wrong turning, and she went back and said, I couldn't find what I was looking for, but I went down this long, damp, dark corridor in the cellar, and there was a door at the end, and the people in the canteen said, did you open the door?
Yeah.
And
All
she
right.
said,
Yeah. There's
no.
a lot. Yeah. Okay. What's behind the door?
Nobody knows, Sol, because that door...
Is that it? That was
that door-
such
That door...
an anticlimax.
That door... Everyone who worked at Gardener Haskins was told never to open that door. And for
Why?
decades, that door has never been opened, Sol, because something is behind that door.
What?
We don't know, Sol.
No way.
True, Sol. And this is
Really?
a true story, Sol. This was told. This so.
That makes me want to go work at Gardner Haskins just to find out what's behind the door.
Sol, you wouldn't open that door. You wouldn't open that door.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is a good one. And it's true, and it's not. This isn't online.
10 points to Gryffindor.
Yeah, thank you, Sol. And this is absolutely true. It's you won't find it online. Don't bother googling it. Just don't bother, because this was told to me by someone who worked there. If you know anyone who worked at Gardner Haskins, you ask them. They'll know about it. But also, I'm going to double this one up, Sol, with a new jail, Whopping Wharf, the development.
Can I just say one thing about your Gardner Haskins? It might be the best one you've done so far. But there's also a slight flaw, because I guess you're implying the ghost of the guy who perished in the fire.
I don't know, Sol. I don't know.
But what I would say is, if he was a ghost, he's a hero. So he's going to be an incredibly... I wouldn't have a problem bumping into his ghost. He sounds like a brilliant man.
But what's behind the door, Sol?
Well, I don't know. But I don't know why you brought up that whole first half then, if it has nothing to do with the door.
Information, Sol. Just information. You make up your own mind. I am but a conduit.
All right.
Do you want me to tell you about the new jail?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, actually, it's not much in this one, really. It's just...
You may as well.
No, it's the new jail, Whopping Wharf, with all the new developments going on now. That was one of Bristol's jails, and it's opposite the Louisiana pub, and beneath the Louisiana pub there is a tunnel which leads from the pub to the jail, and the reason for that is that the executioner stayed in the pub overnight before going and hanging their victims in the jail. And sometimes these hangings were unpopular, and there'd be baying crowds outside, and it would be too dangerous for the executioner to cross the road, and so they go through this secret tunnel. And one such case was when a woman was unfairly sentenced to death, and she was executed. Sol, the executioner, the hangman, walked through the tunnel into the prison yard, hung this innocent woman, and her ghost. She was the last woman to be hung in Bristol, and her ghost still walks that tunnel today. Beneath the Louisiana pub, there is a ghost of the last woman to be hung in the new jail. And do you know what, Sol? People are saying pay loads of money to buy flats there, and they don't know anything about this. They don't know they're buying a flat, a yuppie flat, on the very spot where the last woman prisoner in Bristol was wrongly executed.
Yeah. Fair enough. That was okay. 6 out of 10.
Thank you.
Next up this is my last one. Was that your last one then?
No, I've got one to go.
How does that work? Oh, because I conflated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is shall I throw another one in?
I wouldn't bother, Sol.
No. Okay. So my last one is going to be Dower House in Stoke Park. All right. So most people will recognise this as the big yellow house. So if you're driving out or in along the M32, you'll see that big yellow kind of mansion up on the hill. And I've always found something creepy about it, even when I was a kid. It's very mysterious building. There's something about it that's just quite unsettling, I think. And so I wasn't surprised to find out that it is, of course, one of the most haunted locations in Bristol, and it has quite a grisly past. So there's in a kind of sort of melancholy, sort of kind of sad, remorseful kind of way. It's not kind of it's not pure terror. It's more like this kind of melancholy creepiness about it, I think.
I don't like it that he painted that yellow colour, though.
I think that adds to it, doesn't it?
It's a melancholy, bright yellow.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know...
Is that the colour of melancholy?
Well, have you read The Yellow Wallpaper by...
No, I can't say I have. But we're digressing, Sol. Where's your ghost?
Well,
I'm starting to wonder if there is even a ghost.
You started talking about fucking colour yellow representing melancholy.
No, I'm not.
I had to defend myself. So...
Let the ghost do the talking, Sol.
So it used to be owned by the Somerset family, and 17-year-old Elizabeth Somerset, she used to love horse riding around the grounds.
They headless horses, Sol?
What this is? It would make sense actually if this was, but it's not. And she fell from her horse in 1760 at age 17 and broke her neck. And her ghost is said to still ride around the park. People apparently still hear hooves
Ooh.
bouncing around the grounds when there's not been horses there for hundreds of years. Not only that, but there's just all sorts of ghosts there. I actually saw an interview of one of the guys who used to be a gardener there, and he was really freaked out in an interview, and he said he was doing the gardening one time, and he was in the forest, I think, and he looked up and there was a little girl stood in front of him, and he was like, why are you here? And she didn't say anything. She just ran towards him, and she ran straight through his body.
Oh, my word.
And he said he threw up.
You would, wouldn't you?
He was sick, yeah.
Yeah.
Physically vomited.
Oh.
Imagine that.
I can't begin to imagine that, Sol. What happened? Did she come out the other side then, or is she still in there?
What? I don't know. It's a good point. I don't think he turned around to check.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's a good one, Sol. I've got to give you that. It's got a bit of everything, that, hasn't it? It's got a horse,
Yeah.
a child, a sighting, the sound. I like the sound. The horse's hooves. Very evocative. Not as good as my smell of lavender at the Old Vic, but...
Yeah, but you can't really evoke that for a podcast.
No, you
really,
can't.
Can you?
Can't.
No.
Okay, Sol.
Right.
I've got two more for you. Well, it's one entry, but I can't decide. I can't decide which is the best of these. So I'm going to give you them both.
No. Pick the best. Come on, that's cheating.
Well, no. Let the listeners decide. Sol,
you've thrown in like fucking 20 locations and just been like, oh, this counts as one. But because you've gone like, I'm going to talk about pubs. So I'm going to talk about every haunted pub in Bristol, and that counts as one.
No, it's quality, not quantity. So anyway, this is what I've got for you. So actually, the source for this one is really unusual. It's from a book called the Cradle of Methodism, which I published with the New Room, the John Wesley Chapel in Broadmead, the John Wesley Chapel being the birthplace of Methodism. Is where John and Charles Wesley originally preached. And so there's this book by Gary Best, a fantastic book about the history of Methodism. But in it, Gary Best, or GM Best, recounts a ghostly story involving John Wesley. So the Lamb Inn in West Street in Bedminster, and it was actually knocked down in 1905. The Lamb. But it was one of Bristol's oldest pubs before then. It was built in, we think, 1651. And in the mid-18th century, the landlord there was a guy called Richard Giles. And in 1762, he reported that the pub was bewitched. He had 8 children, and the kids started saying that they felt they were being pinched in the night, and that there was something in their room. And then, Sol, knife cuts appeared on the children's arms. And then, Sol, furniture started flying across the room. And then the children saw this creature, this dark creature running around, a dog-like creature running around. And do you know what? They didn't have a dog.
No. I'm
it was a poltergeist.
I'm assuming,
so
yeah, you weren't just telling the story about the family dog.
No. And various clerics got involved in this, including John Wesley. We don't know if Wesley actually visited the pub, but he was certainly aware of it, and he recorded in his journals. John Wesley recorded that he believed the children's stories. He believed that the pub was cursed. And the reason he believed this was because his family home was also haunted by a ghost called Old Geoffrey. So John Wesley...
Old Geoffrey.
Old Jeff, for short.
Old Jeff.
And
It's terrifying.
they eventually, then it got worse and worse, Sol. Scratchings, noises, cuts, poltergeists, curtains being thrown around rooms. And Richard Giles was convinced that he'd been cursed by an old witch from Mangotsfield. And so there are a lot of old witches in Mangotsfield.
To this day.
Believe you me, I'm from that side of town, so I know about these things. John Wesley died. Richard Giles also died. Richard Giles died of flu. And after his death, do you know what happened?
What?
His widow got his children's urine, the girl's urine, to try and get rid of the curse of the old witch of Mangotsfield. And do you know what, Sol?
Did it work?
It worked.
It worked.
It worked.
So, if you've got a curse, boil your urine.
Yes, particularly girls. Female urine apparently is.
It's fairly
I think it's actually.
straightforward.
I don't know if that's because it was a female witch. If it was a male.
Why didn't they
witch,
figure that out earlier?
Well, I don't know, Sol. I wasn't there. This was 1762. Anyway, finally, and this is true. And again, you won't find this recorded anywhere, Sol. Unlike some of your examples, I haven't just Googled. I haven't spent 5 minutes
a lot
Googling.
of your ones are weirdly off record. It's just anecdotal, like.
So you heard this one recounted only 2 hours ago. We were having lunch with our very great friend Mark Steeds, landlord of the Beaufort Arms in Hawkesbury Upton. A very fine institution. Wonderful lunches, close to the Cotswold Way if you fancy a walk. Fine selection of ales, particularly Bristol Beer Factory. And anyway, Mark was brought up in Keynsham, and he told us, Sol, that on Daps Hill there is a site of an old corn mill. There were several mills down by the river there, and on Daps Hill in Keynsham, and that one evening or one day there was one of the workers there got his hand stuck in the grinding machine of the mill. And Mark said that the ghost of this man who was dragged into the machinery and died is seen regularly by at closing time when people leave the nearby ship inn. This harmless ghost, the ghost with no arm, walks Daps Hill.
He does sound pretty harmless.
He is harmless. It's true, Sol. Mark told us. It's true.
Right. Okay,
that's it
so
for me,
you
Sol.
done?
I'm done.
You done? So
Yeah.
what is your top 5, Richard? Because there's
You want
about
my top 5?
20
Okay.
locations.
Number
that you've
one.
given me.
Number
what,
one.
What are you selecting for your top 5?
Number 1, the Odeon.
Right.
Robert Parrington Jackson, the Odeon. Number 2, Pierre, the little leg iron bow in the Landoga log. The kid in the pub.
Okay, not a location, but fine.
Oh, actually, it could be the torso. No, it's going to be the Landoga Trail.
Yeah, don't go for the torso.
Number 2, the Landoga Trail. It's a location. Number 3, the hole in the wall. Controversially, Long John Silver.
Long John Silver.
Yeah, the hole in the wall. Gardner Haskins. It's got to be Gardner Haskins.
Garner Haskins is a good one.
It was a good one. And number 5, the Lamb Inn in West Street.
Right.
John Wesley and all that. What about you, Sol? What's your... Can you stretch to 5?
Yep. So my top 5 was actually... I don't actually need to really clarify it because I just stuck to the rules and did 5 locations. So it's Arnis Vale, which encompasses also Arnis Manor Hotel, the cemetery, and Wilder Studios where I worked.
It sounds like most of Brislington, Sol.
No, it's not. Pembroke Road.
I thought it was St Michael's Hill.
So Christmas Steps came before that. Whatever. So that's where
this is
they
the dwarf,
dragged.
isn't it?
That's where they dragged.
Oh
up.
no, they dragged the dwarfs up there.
No, for God's sake, that's where they dragged the prisoners up the hill, and what's his name? The highwayman.
I don't know, Sol.
Jenkins Prothero would attack people's shins, and then
I thought he was a dwarf.
I don't know. I don't know how PC. I don't know if that's okay word now, Richard.
You can't be a highwayman and a dwarf, surely.
I don't know. You're gonna have to take it up with with someone more qualified to speak on that. And Pembroke Road is where his remains were left.
Oh, the dangling remains.
And it's where he still dances under the moon.
Oh yeah, dancing in the moonlight.
Dancing in the moonlight. And then I've got Ashton Court. So I mean that had it all: Headless Horseman, Grey Ladies, and a Phantom Hound. And then it was Dower House, where you had the horses, the little girl who ran through that man's body, or maybe lives inside his body, we don't know. And I don't know, other ghosts. Oh, yeah, there was loads. I gave you loads. I gave you proper ghosts. You gave me weird made up pirate ghosts.
So Sol, talking about which Sol, we got to tell the listeners is that these stories are recounted in several books, but check out Weird Bristol. Check out The Naked Guide to Bristol, which contains some a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
And but Weird Bristol as well is great. It's a really good collection of unusual stories about Bristol. And one other thing, Sol, we have to remind the listeners is that one of these stories is completely untrue.
Yeah, have a guess which one that is.
But which one is it? If you can guess,
don't think it's difficult.
I think it's very difficult, Sol. One of them is entirely fabricated. All the others are true stories, but one is not. And there will be a prize, won't there, Sol?
Yeah. First listener to get it right will win Naked Guide to Bristol.
That's a good thing, Sol.
Yeah. And also, if you are into just creepy shit in general, check out some of Stanley Donwood's work on the Tangent Books website.
Oh, yeah. Scary stuff, yeah. Yeah, Household Worms.
Yeah.
They're all based, short stories based on a series of psychotic dreams, Sol. They're great.
It's really good.
It is really good, yeah.
And another great reason to keep listening to this podcast every week is that we will be giving out discount codes. So the discount code for this week is GHOST, all caps, and if you apply that on the Tangent Books website, you will get a 10% discount on the Stanley Donwood books and The Naked Guide to Bristol as mentioned. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes because we will be releasing more of these discount codes each time. So now we're going to head into the mailbag section of the show. This is something that I want to make a more regular feature on each episode. So if you want to send your messages, reviews, thoughts, everything to sol@tangentbooks.co.uk, then I can read it out on the episode and we can start fun discussions and stuff. And for this week's episode, I actually set a kind of quite specific task for listeners where I wanted you to write in with your own ghost stories, preferably from around the Bristol area, to kind of add to this whole discussion on Most Haunted Bristol. And we got a really great ghost story from a Mr. Jonathan Evans, who is a writer, and you can find him at Jonathan Evans 45 on Twitter. I'll put his Twitter in the description. And Tangent Books are actually publishing his new book, The Mystery of Ernie Taylor's Abdomen and Other Stories, which should be available in November at some point. So he sent in an audio file of himself reading this ghost story that actually happened to him, and I'm going to play that to you now.
A lived-in face. I was beginning to feel that things were getting back to normal after the events of the summer, and that my world, which had been turned upside down, was now getting back onto an even keel. My train pulled into Westbury. It was one of those gentle, pellucid autumn afternoons, a rose-red sun streaming through banked cotton wool clouds and milky wraiths of mist rising on the Wiltshire combes. I saw him as soon as he entered the carriage. Oddly, I almost felt that I knew him. He had the sort of face that wasn't so much as lived in, as much as died in. He was old, maybe 80 or so, scruffy and unshaven, and with a mouth full of yellowing jigsaw teeth. I knew he was coming to sit near me, and, as I had work to do, I tried to hide my head in my notes. Too late. He sat down opposite and fixed me with his blue eyes, smiled, and it began. I lived around here as a young lad. It's not strange, you know. His eyes twinkled. Strange that, because everything else seems to have. See these, he said, holding out 2 huge hammered hands. They've made more money than you can imagine. He paused and then said softly, they've killed people as well. Mind you, they deserved it. I thought everyone else in the carriage would be listening, but no one seemed to notice, not even the couple across the aisle. Maybe they just didn't want to get drawn into the conversation. Yes, money, scrap metal, wrecking, that's me. Made millions. His eyes looked into the distance, and he sighed as though he'd seen something familiar. Memory. There's a thing. I remember as a lad I were playing war games over there on the fold of the Downs. All of a sudden it came over. Looked like it were made of corrugated iron. The din was terrifying and I couldn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off the cross on the wings, black and white and menacing and coming for me. I saw the earth leap up, and the smell of soil and damp grass was everywhere. All around me the ground was bouncing up and down. It was like a dream. The bugger was trying to kill me. I never even heard the sound of the machine guns. I just ran. I felt that if I lay down, I'd be dead. He smiled. Even today, I don't know how I survived. Just lucky, I reckon. Always lucky, I was. Like I said, I've made a pile. The first job I got was a big country house not far from here, a lovely place. It was owned by Mountbatten, you know. Gave me £100 for pulling it down. Took me a month. It was a fortune in those days. I then had to get rid of the rubble. What I didn't know was that the lead and the timber was worth almost as much again, and before I knew it, I was selling it on and was up to my neck in wrecking and scrap. He looked at me. You'll happen to have read about me. I'm Richard McIntyre. Look me up when you get off. You'll find me easy enough. I'm well known in these parts. The sun was starting to set, and the sky was turning, first to amber and then velvet, as he recounted his past. I met Oppie once, long after that aeroplane business. Who? I said. Oppie, Oppenheimer. It was years after the war, in Minnesota. Folks were saying at the time that he was a threat, but apart from that incident involving his attempt to strangle his pal, he seemed fine to me. I remembered reading somewhere about Oppenheimer trying to strangle somebody with a suitcase strap. Hardly the ideal background, I thought, for the scientific director of the atom bomb project. He looked at me, his eyes the profoundest blue. What was it that Oppenheimer had said right after the Los Alamos test? Then I remembered. The archetype smiled. I have become death. He nodded. Quite. Well, this is me, he said, rising. As the train slowed, he moved towards the exit. Remember, Jonathan, he called over his shoulder as he made his way to the carriage door. There are ghosts, you know. You only have to look for them. And then he was gone. As soon as I got home, I went straight to my computer to look up my new friend on Google. I never really thought that I'd find him, but I did. It was all true. He'd made a fortune and met with the great and the good, and was known in those parts as a rough diamond, a self-made man who had the ability to tell a fine tale. All of this I gleaned from his obituary, posted 9 years earlier. I still travel that line, and each time I look out for my mate with the lived-in face. But if he's there, I never seem to see him.
So thank you very much to Jonathan for that story. It was truly spooky, and make sure you go and support him where you can and keep an eye out for his new book. Please keep on sending stuff over to me, salt@tangentbooks, and I'll read it out on the podcast. Have a guess at which one of our ghost stories was fake, because then you have a chance of winning a free book. And don't forget to head over to the Tangent Books website and slap on that discount code, all caps, GHOST, on the Naked Guide or any of the Stanley Donwood books. So,
You done?
Signing out for this week. Tangent calling. Stay spooky. See you later. Tangent calling!
Dancing in the moonlight, 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 dancing in the moonlight.
Almost every night, when that moon is big and bright, it's a supernatural delight. Everybody dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine natural sight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight.
Happy Halloween.